Hey, what's going on there, YouTube? This is SCL0320 representing JVS. Got home a little bit earlier, just came back from the dentist. Interesting stuff I don't want to bring up there. But this is going to be a completely unedited video. So I apologize if you want to see pictures and stuff like that. This is not that time. I will give you a high disclaimer. There's going to be a lot of spoilers from every spectrum. I'm not just talking about TV shows. I'm talking about, in addition to that, movies. Because the name of this one is going to be the deaths within comic book movies and TV shows. And how that basically, to me and my interpretation and my feelings, and I guess given the light situation that happened with Arrow, I think it's much needed. And it can transcend from Arrow to The Walking Dead to Batman vs Superman, and then on and so forth. So I'm going to try to go through as many examples as I can. If y'all can think of any notable deaths that happened from a villain or a hero within any of the mediums, such as that, even if it's a cartoon, that's still considered TV, leave it in the comment section below if it bothered you, if you felt like it was disjointed, it kind of came out of some other place, okay? So this is my perspective on it, all right? So in 1989, when Batman came out, you know, Tim Burton, Michael Keaton, Jack Nicholson, you've never seen the movie, awesome movie. One of the things about it, they changed the mythology of Batman. They had it, instead of the person that, so nobody that killed his parents, they had it be Jack Napier, which Jack Napier ended up being the Joker. And now, I thought that was an amazing plot twist, you know what I'm saying? For the genre in general, to take the tone to that level and make their, you know, dissection so much more elevated, you know, it made sense from that standpoint. One other thing that they did, as opposed also, in addition to changing the mythology, they actually killed the Joker. Like, Joker fell, plummeted to his death. Now, when I was a kid, I didn't know enough about it. I was like, oh, he's still laughing. He's still alive. It was years later before I realized that this was like a recorder that was just playing on impact. Like, he had crushed his skull in. Like, he was dead. And now, if that had happened, right, in The Dark Knight, if Heath Ledger had plummeted to his death and such an amazing performance, everybody would have been upset. But for that time frame, people didn't take the superhero genre that seriously, nor did it change their perspective on analyzing it as a movie or analyzing it as a show or whatnot. Nowadays, that is completely different. And the spectrum lines in different parts. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull from, I guess, different references that I've seen recently and previously, okay? So, one of the ones that kind of affected me personally, as far as the movie is concerned, is when, and this is actually a villain, when I heard that James Spader, of all people, was going to be Ultron. I knew the Ultron comics. I knew the elevation of just the character in general. Even when the Winter Soldier came out, and I was thinking, man, like Samuel L. Jackson, he might be dead. When they basically thought about killing him, I was like, they can't do that. Now, from movie standpoints, that's fine. It's understandable, you know? But if they would have killed Samuel Jackson, and then the mythology and the changing of the dynamics of how the Avengers were from the comics versus that, it would have shifted so many different things. I think it would have probably pissed off a lot of different people. Now, not more so than certain people on DC side, but definitely it would have been some pissed off people. They didn't. They kept them alive. And that's one of the things that Marvel maintains with as far as their heroes. Now, as far as their villains are concerned, James Spader, by the end of this movie, you're thinking, okay, this thing is sentient. Like, it can go and spread throughout. Like, it's literally a ghost in the machine, as it were. And the only thing that was able to combat it was Jarvis. Jarvis in and of itself was brought out from nothing. And they were able to revolve him back, and they were able to contain him, and now he became Vision, which was awesome. All these are spoilers. Vision used the Infinity Stone that's wrapped on his body, and he destroyed, supposedly, the last version of Ultron. The thing about that I had a problem with, from a mythology standpoint and from a story standpoint, they would have had so much more to gain if they would have just allowed the character to be contained and him not be able to go anywhere or be rooted out unless Hank Pym or somebody else was the one that kind of deployed him out. They didn't do that. They just killed the villains. Matter of fact, most of the villains for Iron Man, Captain America, only one that kind of stayed alive really was Loki. Now it's debatable with Captain America, the first Avenger, because the Red Skull, I mean, he's not supposed to be dead. Now the thing is, Agent Smith doesn't want to come back as that character, but I mean, I was happy they didn't change that. Now that was what, 2 years ago? So now let's think about today. The thing that affects a lot of different people. Case in point, the big three, really, because, I mean, so say what you want to say about, you know, The Walking Dead or Arrow, well, Batman versus Superman. These are good shows / movies. Debatable? Yes. Do they have some seriously strong points? Yes. And so, I'll talk about The Walking Dead, for instance. The Walking Dead finale. Everybody had this huge build-up to the character Negan, right? He was coming and he was going to kill somebody. He was going to beat the holy crap out of somebody, you know? And like the thing I will say is that the studio platformed this season off of that. If they had never showed or said that Negan was coming, just that episode they had, you know, Negan be there, it would have been fine. But every commercial, every part of each conversation, it envelops Negan. He's coming, he's going to do this. And so people are going to instantly want to go to the comics to figure out source material what to do. And what they got an amazing performance by Jeffrey Dean Morgan. Amazing. So they didn't kill, you know, the villain. They killed one of the heroes. The problem with that is they didn't show it. And so people's expectation was to see it, was to feel it, to be emotionally devastated by it. And what they got was totally the opposite of that. And matter of fact, it actually changed and deteriorated the fan base of the Walking Dead community. People I've talked to, I can say on record, like Jeremy, he was like, I'm not looking at Fear the Walking Dead. I'm going to wait, not watch anything on AMC until, you know, The Walking Dead tells me who they killed. And if they killed somebody that's not legitimate, that they put me through all this for somebody for it not to be that payoff, then I'm done with it. And there's a lot of people like that. I, for one, thought the episode was great. I think that they should not have done what they did. I think that was a stupid move. I think it was a calculated financial move, personally, regardless of whatever they say. But it affected a lot of people, okay? Now, I'll go to one that everybody talks about. I don't like talking about this. I'm going to make a whole different video on this. Wait and see. But Batman vs. Superman, for me, I actually enjoyed the film. I didn't think it was a perfect film by any means. I'm not the type to just dissect and psychoanalyze and just tear down a superhero movie. Why would I even care to tear down a superhero movie? I mean, even with Fantastic Four, the original one, not the new one, like, that was the campiest, cheesiest thing in the world, but I could still sit there and watch it right now with all its terrible flaws, you know? And Batman vs. Superman had a lot of good things about it. It had some touching moments, way too serious in tone, certain points. But one of the things that happens in the movie, huge spoiler alert again, is they killed the Man of Steel. And it messed people up more than I realized. I mean, I knew people were talking about the movie and just having all this kind of problems, but some people, just on the platform, they had the audacity of saying, oh, they did not earn the right to kill Superman. Like, that should have been a different movie. That should have been Superman. And I will agree. I thought, personally, even when I saw the trailers of Doomsday, they were going to take him, keep him capitalized, and they were going to, you know, leave this for something else when it was going to happen. Now, it played out because it platformed the Justice League, but it sacrificed Superman as a character, you know? And that's not the way the mythology actually happened. And this, even like with the Walking Dead scenario, I mean, the thing about that sequence that was so pivotal is the fact that in the comic books, it's like when you seeing it and you watching it, Negan just leaves after that. And they're just left to sit there. And that's a bigger cliffhanger arc that everybody was expecting and wanted, but we got something totally different, right? Now, I'm going to go to the other pro side of this. Try to. But with Batman Superman, straight up killed him, right? And that, I mean, that is part of Superman lore and history, but then they reneged because they want to make sure that you know Superman's alive and the dirt rise. Now, it could be that Darkseid's taking his body and manipulated him from this point? We don't know. And it's left up to interpretation, but a lot of people were pissed about it. Last night, Arrow has done this crazy thing of killing people off. Like, we thought that Felicity was dead. It's basically called clickbait. We thought Felicity was dead. We thought Thea was gonna get killed. Who else? Sarah Lance, we thought she was dead. Roy Harper, we thought he was dead. And they all came back, right? They all came back. For whatever reason, they were like, well, we gotta kill somebody else to make and cement this, right? And from the comic book standpoint, I do have a problem with it if this is true. What I read in the article today, it might. But they basically killed Diana Lance. They killed... they killed the Black Canary, y'all. Like, after everything. After the... I don't know if it was the beginning of this season or last season, when they actually gave her the costume and gave her all this, that she's going to be this, she's going to be this hero, and she went up against her sister. For her, as a hero, really, to not be able to really defend herself that well, personally. They just totally crapped all over the presence of the Black Canary. Oh my gosh. But, you know what I'm saying? You know, Kate Cassidy is actually a great actress, believe it or not. And they just didn't do her character. Now, then that episode, she's finally starting to defend herself. She's finally knowing who she wants to be and do. She got over alcoholism. You know what they did? They just murked her. Straight like that. And from my perspective, it sounded like there was something going on between her and Oliver. She said, asked her to make a promise. But it doesn't matter. Because people are done with Arrow. They are like, forget this. You fool me, this. And that's the same thing that happened with not Batman, but The Walking Dead. Glenn, time after time, thought he was going to die. Same thing with Daryl. The episode before the season finale, he got shot. And you don't find out the ramifications. Oh, it wasn't anything. You know, and so from expectations to what they get, it totally affects a lot of different things. Now I'm going to talk about the positives, right? A show that I used to look at that I loved was Smallville. Smallville changed. They tried to change up the mythology so much. They had freaking Lex Luthor friends with Clark Kent. They had like Clark interacting with the Justice League before the Justice League was even formed, before he was even Superman. They were calling themselves their own code names. And Batman wasn't a part of the universe. Wonder Woman was a part of the universe. Did people have a problem with that? Heck no. Because they were getting entertained from a daily basis and there was a lot of more development. That's why Batman or Superman, in my opinion, like, why is everybody so serious, you know? But it was an expectation of what they wanted and representation. But what Smallville did, there were times they straight up killed people. Like heroes and people that were of influence. I think Hawkman died and you're like, what? You know, that changed the mythology. But you know what Smallville was smart enough to do? Is anytime they killed somebody, anytime they did something, they made sure that this was not finite. Like even when Doomsday came in presence and Clark went up and like hit him, he knocked him into like the earth and he's stuck there. He's not dead. And that's one of the things that Smallville got right, is that no matter how much they changed or shifted things, they never changed or compromised the scope of the mythology. I think even the same thing could be said about Spider-Man 2. Like when I looked at Spider-Man 2, there was a lot of things that was totally different. This is not the mythology of Spider-Man. I mean, one of the things is like he didn't use web shooters. It actually was part of his body. And even the way that he interacted, you know, it wasn't reminiscent of the Peter Parker that people would expect, but that is now what is the true platform. But what they never did, they never compromised the mythology for personal gain or for advantage over story, because that's the whole thing that I'm trying to bring out to light. I'm giving out all of this perspective to say that there has to be an equal measure of balance. Like for every time that you say, all right, I'm going to kill a villain, I'm going to kill a hero, you have to make sure that that doesn't counterbalance an opportunity for a future incarnation or a future part of the mythos of that character or their connection with some other character that would be compromised. So now it's like with Arrow, for instance, now Felicity is just put in the platform and just dug into Oliver because he didn't have anybody else. There is no Diana Lance that's the love of his life. Even though, I don't know why they did this, she was like, oh, I loved you. I was like, gosh, dog, really? They're like, why would you? She didn't have to say that. And it's like, what it's going to do is going to pit it people against their relationship just from byproduct of that. And the same thing is going to happen with The Walking Dead is if they don't have somebody of significance to die, it's like you compromise the mythology, you lied to me, and now I'm done with it. Because it's like now everybody's forced to watch it versus it just fleshed out organically, you know. And even with Batman versus Superman, for them to kill, you know, Superman in that moment, it hit me, but it was so quick that it could have been so much more on an epic scale if they would have kind of drew it back, you know, and waited to do a standalone and see where it goes, and could have gave us the Death of Superman after the Justice League, hypothetically speaking. Now, I don't know, because they're changing up dates for stuff like that, but I'm just giving you interesting parallels with deaths within franchises. And I mean, even with Ultron, like, you're seriously gonna kill one of the people that are unstoppable, that are truly unstoppable in all honesty. Even if you destroy him, you can't truly get rid of him. And they eliminated an amazing actor's presence there. And that's even with Pietro. They freaking killed Pietro, and that is not canon. I mean, I could forgive, you know, them not calling them mutants and they're metahumans or something to that degree. I can't remember what they called it. But they were designed instead of born into that. And you start compromising mythology with that. Okay, I can understand that with Scarlet Witch. Now she's got a connection with Vision. But then you're going to kill Pietro from a delegation of responsibility which you have with Fox. That's not cool. And I mean, us as comic book people, we're going to know. But then the general audience now, they have this serious tone when it comes to comic book movies, television, and entertainment. Why? Because it's absorbed into everything. Like, the problem is that the networks think now that they can just kill people or change things from a mythology standpoint, and it doesn't matter. It's in the past, you know? And that's not true. Unfortunately, people do care. People will ridicule and talk down. Like, I've seen people literally come from hating Zack Snyder to now they were going and hating the people from the AMC to just yesterday just hating whoever the writers are for for Arrow. They were like, it's dead. Like, just bury it, you know? And the same thing happened with me when I looked at Vampire Diaries. Like, Vampire Diaries is kind of based on a book series more so than anything. But they did something in the Vampire Diaries episode last time that just didn't make plumb bit of sense. And I was like, Judy Pleck, this is your fault. I ain't studying. And this is unrelated, but I can understand and empathize because I actually was invested in this story. You know, I was invested in these characters and just wasting them. And then now they're going to have people leaving. I think I just saw Kate Cassidy saying on Twitter or whatever, she's like, guess my character's run its course, love y'all. And it's like, there's a fine line that you have to maintain if you're going to do a comic book movie, TV show, or cartoon. When I remember looking at the Justice League cartoons or even the Spider-Man cartoons or whatever, they would have people that would die, but they would always find a way of merging things back in. I think one of the most impactful moments that happened to me when I looked at the Spider-Man, the end of the series, last season finale, they had one episode with Stan Lee, but before that it was a multi-universe thing. And basically it was one universe where Peter Parker had gotten absorbed with the Carnage symbiote. And he was the worst of anything, you know. And the thing about it was that the smart Peter that was from the, I guess, Earth 1 or whatever, he had went and got Uncle Ben from a different universe, brought him in front of him, and the man just broke down. You know, I mean, that's totally out of anything, but it doesn't compromise anything because even that dramatic effect was justified. Just like even with Batman 1989, even with like the Blade series, with things that they changed with that arc that's not connected to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I mean, it's just a lot of things that you just can't do. And this is what my worry is, to be quite honest with you. When I think about Civil War, depending on who dies, I think that, well, I'm going to say this. With DC fans, you know, they're less lenient, but Marvel fans love to hate DC. When something happens that's kind of disorderly, even like case in point, you know, Age of Ultron, in my opinion, should have been a lot better. People forgave that. And I think that if something happened like, instead of Steve Rogers dying, or instead of something pivotal that happened in the Civil War franchise, if they totally just shoot it out the door and crap on the mythology, I think people are going to be more inclined to forgive it. That's just how the fan base is. But internally, they're going to be affected by it. Because it's like, you got the general consumers that look at the movies, and then you got the people that are the comic book fans, and you got people that are in between the lines of kind of going over to the comic book section. But it's like, when you start making these changes like that, you compromise so much. And it's like Deadpool didn't compromise anything. You know, even with The Dark Knight, they really didn't compromise anything. And that's the thing. Like, it bridges a line of what is essential to entertain, to keep in perspective of the mythology, and then come up with a story that is not boxed in based on either one of those two terms. And I think that the writers are having this huge problem with that, because they're trying to make things fresh, they're trying to do things new. It's like, I think with like Kate Cassidy's character, people didn't really like her, you know, as the Black Canary anyway. The situation that happened with Glenn, they already played Cry Wolf, and they saw there was a lot of negative backlash. So if they, maybe in their opinion, if they killed Glenn or whoever, then people would get an outlash with that. And so they were like, all right, I'm just not going to show it. Or maybe they just didn't want to do it. And even with like Batman vs. Superman, I honestly feel like the WB, they made and changed the dynamics of that movie. Because the movie basically was created and done in 2015, because it was supposed to be put out in that. They added a lot of scenes, especially those cameos, and even stuff with Wonder Woman to platform the Justice League. And I think that, I don't know if the Man of Steel thing was supposed to be done in that way, but I really feel like it was some definite changes that overtook some of the creative prowess that Zack had already had, and that's just my personal opinion on it. But I don't know. What do y'all think about deaths within superhero movies, franchises in general? TV, cartoon, or whatever. What were some of the ones that affected you, that changed your perspective on those actual comic book genres, or their shows, or even the prospect of what they could be later on? Flash has not compromised yet necessarily, but it could run to that line a little sooner. Legend of Tomorrow is kind of really fresh and new. Gotham, oh my gosh. Gotham has compromised everything. But Gotham is still entertaining because they haven't killed anybody officially yet, except for Noah Freeze, which I had a problem with that. Because but the thing is, as I said, even with Smallville, they knew the difference. They knew, okay, if I kill this person, I have to make sure there's a way of them to be able to come back. You know, it can't be no point of no return kind of thing. And I think that Gotham has this way of doing it. Just like Jerome is now assumed that he can be brought back to life. Same thing with Fish Mooney and Theo Gallivant. And I'm pretty sure that I think that they're going to find a way of bringing Nora back, because she's going to be more useful as a tool to keep Victor under control. But that's one of the things I say about Gotham, even though it's so off the rails. I don't know how they're going to get to a place that Jim Gordon is going to marry, you know, Barbara. That blows my mind, even though she's probably got her mind wiped by now. You know, it's like, it just doesn't make sense, because now he's pregnant with, I mean, that I can definitely say that is the one that I don't know how it counterbalances, because it's entertaining to me, but there's a lot of my friends that just hate it. And for me, it's like, because it's so early on, you know, I can kind of forgive it, because I don't know where these characters were in that time. I can only assume from year one and certain other comics that make reference and notion to it. But then they changed up from, you know, Silver to Golden Age and all these different kind of versions. So it's like, I'm just entertained by it. You know, I know what Gotham is. It's not trying to be the exact. But it's like, when Arrow came out, I felt like it kind of wanted to be exact. I felt like Flash wanted to be exact. Same thing with The Walking Dead, even though they've changed the dynamics of who dies and who doesn't. Like, there's certain pivotal moments, even in this season, that they kept to the wire. And so for them to compromise the mythology in certain terms, it's inconsiderate to certain comic book fans. But at the same time, I can understand why they did it. But there has to be that equal measure balance. I don't know. But anyway, that's my final spiel. I just wanted to rant on that. Hopefully y'all enjoyed some of that. Maybe that helped lift off some of the burden on y'all. Probably not. But I'm here to talk. JVS, we ain't gonna stop. Y'all have a blessed one. Peace.